Father Barnabas is the priest of Saints Nicholas, Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene in Cumming, Georgia. Is a very vibrant, dynamic, healthy parish full of 75% converts in his parish that's expanding now into a much larger campus. He's one of the dynamic preachers of our archdiocese, so we welcome Father Barnabas back home.
Thank you so much, Father. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to offer this to our blessed school. So Father Luke and Father Pintuk and Dr. Katos and all of the folks that are responsible for making this happen. It's a wonderful time, and I'm grateful for the invitation to do this work. In my opinion, I think this is probably one of the most important moments for Orthodoxy in the United States. And I think the reason why that is because something that the Apostle Paul said in the book of Acts when he was talking about going into a new mission field. He said, "A great door of opportunity was opened for me, and there was great opposition." By the way, whenever there's a great door of opportunity open to you, there will always be great opposition. So don't be shocked by that. That's the normal way. So in this moment for Orthodoxy in the United States, and in the English-speaking world, frankly, in this moment of opportunity for the Orthodox faith in our country and in our culture, there's a great door of opportunity that's opened. As Father Luke was telling you, our parish in Cumming, Georgia is 75+% convert. We are a very, very unusual Greek Orthodox church, but we're a Greek Orthodox church nonetheless. And our parish is made up, I would say the median age of our parish is about 33. We have a lot of young people, a lot of young men converting to the faith. This coming Sunday, I will make about 46 to 48 people catechumens in our church that will start their year-long process of being formed in the Orthodox faith. That's, frankly, since the pandemic, interestingly enough, that's become the norm in our place. And it has been this crisis moment in our culture of the pandemic and the unusual event that happened in the pandemic that has shaken this society, this culture, to start asking some very, very significant questions. It's not a mistake that they have called this challenge a meaning crisis, especially for young men. In this society, in this culture, in the prevailing culture of the day, the educational culture of the day, the political culture, all of this stuff that we've heard, all of this crisis that we have been facing is something that's going on in our parishes as well. It's happening in our communities, in our parishes, in our young people. The fact of the matter is, if our statistics continue being what they are, 6 in 10 of our kids that have been raised in our church their whole lives will never come back to the Orthodox Church when they go to college. 6 in 10. Friends, I love you. Do you understand that's not a sustainable demographic? You understand that, right? We're talking funeral. We're talking eonia imniimi. And Orthodoxy, when it goes to a place as a missionary movement, usually becomes the dominant Christian expression of that culture. It did not come to our country as a missionary movement per se, except maybe in Alaska. That's the reason why all the Eskimos make the sign of the cross like this. But for the most part, our country had orthodoxy brought to it as an immigrant movement. Nothing wrong with that. That's not unusual, especially in the melting pot that is the United States. Makes perfect sense. But the reality is, you couple the meaning crisis that is going on in our culture, the strong cultural and societal division that has gone on in our nation, where you have this foolish notion of the red states against the blue states and the right against the left and blah, 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 and politics becoming basically a religion in this society. You have a culture that is so shaped by this division, this extremism, we're going to talk to our folks And we're not going to talk to those other people, whoever those other people are. And you've got a recipe for societal destruction. I mean, folks, all you have to do is look. I was in Greece for my senior trip, and if you've spent any time at all knowing anything about me at all, you know I'm a smart aleck, and I'm proud of it, and it offends some people, and that makes it even more desirable for me. I was there in Greece, and I was talking. We were all going through, and we had seen ruin after ruin after ruin. And I finally looked at the tour guide in my best smart aleck Southern way. I said, "Can you show me something that isn't broken here?" Because every great culture, no matter what that great culture is, you can measure the decline when the society becomes set against itself. And our so-called great culture, the American empire, is no different than any other great empire that's been in human existence. It can be dissolved and destroyed. And it's usually from the inside out. Now, couple that with the presence of the Orthodox Church. We're actually going to get to the slides in just a minute. This is all just preamble. My goal is to keep you awake, so that's the goal. Couple this with the Orthodox Church coming in the United States, and the Orthodox Church is growing exponentially in the United States faster than it ever has before. And it's people that are absolutely running as spiritual refugees from the spiritual desert of the United States into the arms of the Orthodox faith, where they discover such an embarrassment of riches theologically, spiritually, and discipline-wise, spiritual wisdom, spiritual truth, spiritual fruit, spiritual meat, a theology that actually creates culture. Καταλάβετε. For those of you who don't speak Greek, that means, do y'all understand? A theology that actually creates culture. It creates society. And they're discovering that in the Orthodox Church. And something that a dear priest friend of mine told me the other day, he said, I'm not so much worried about people coming to the Orthodox Church. I'm worried about what they're coming into, what kind of Orthodox church they're coming into. Are they coming into an Orthodox church that actually has room for the other? Are they coming into the Orthodox church that actually is a healthy Orthodox community? Or is it just a Yaya's Baklava Preservation Society? I'll say that again later, just so it'll be so that when you're awake and paying attention, you can use that joke. It's fine. It's not a problem. Because if they're coming to Yaya's Baklava Preservation Society, they're going to go away disappointed that what we say in our liturgy we actually don't believe in our hearts, because you have the audacity to say in the divine liturgy, every divine liturgy, this is the incredible, shocking, amazing claim you Orthodox claim. Every divine liturgy you say these words out loud together. Some of you do it in languages that you may not understand, but you say it. We have seen the light, the true light. We have received the heavenly Spirit. Really? That's audacious. We have found the Greek, the true faith. Worshipping the undivided Trinity who has saved us. Who has saved us? What an audacious, outlandish claim. How dare you make that claim unless it's true? And if it is true, then my precious friends, I cannot understand why in the world we don't have great sermons, especially with the material that we've got to work with. In fact, it is a symptom of our own spiritual poverty that what has been normal throughout the centuries in the Orthodox Church is not normal in our own day. And what normal am I talking about? I want to reset your idea of normal away from mediocrity towards excellence, because in our Orthodox faith, for century upon century, it has been the Orthodox orators who have been the ones who are remembered throughout the ages. Chrysostom didn't get his name because he was a lousy preacher. And over again, we read the fathers and we read the homilies of the fathers, and we see their commitment to excellence. And this is what I want to focus on as I talk about preaching through Holy Week. The reality is, folks, you will never reset your idea of normal if you don't create a sufficiently strong enough, large enough, big enough motivation to move you from mediocrity to excellence. You will remain in mediocrity, which sometime, and I get it, mediocrity is a very comfortable place. It's really nice. Nobody gets upset. I'm not upset. You're not upset. Everybody's fine. And we have a little thing, and we do our little thing, and then we go about our business and live our real life after we've done our little religious obligation once a week. Well, trust me, brothers and sisters, while that may wear the name Orthodox, it isn't. Normal orthodoxy changes the world. Normal orthodoxy, lived out seriously, purposefully, makes a man by the grace of God what Christ is by nature. That audacious claim that the purpose of Orthodox theology is theosis, to become by grace what Christ is by nature, if that is ever not at the burning ember in your soul that creates the motivation for you to do your public speaking well, then trust me, brothers and sisters, you will not do speaking well. Because the motivation isn't strong enough to drive you to excellence, and that's what must happen. Your why must be so clearly understood. In fact, I'll give you that. And this free. It won't cost you anything. Everybody that's online, you get this free too. A secular book written by a guy by the name of Simon Sinek called Start With Why. I want you to buy that book. I want you to buy that book, and I don't get any commissions off that at all. I want you to get that book, and I want you to read it. Start with why. People don't care what you do. They care why you do it. And why you do something is always expressed in the excellence that you put towards it. If you understand why the homily must be excellent because it is part of the divine liturgy, then you'll begin to understand why the effort is completely worth it to do your homilies well. I want you to look at why isn't this going here? Let's try this. No, that's not working. Let's try this. Nope. I'm very sad. What about that? No. Oh, it's off. No wonder. So if we turn it on, then it works. Isn't that amazing? That's my job after lunch, to turn you from off to on. And so here we go. And we're still not working. And we are on, aren't we? There we go. There we go. St. Gregory of Nazianzen. Are you changing it for me, or am I? Or are we going to change the batteries? Wisdom. Let us pretend. Let us attend. Well, come on, folks. You might as well say that during the divine liturgy, when you've got some people just completely unplugged and they're standing in the midst of eternity. What do you think?
It's working now.
Yes? Oh, good.
Maybe a special parent. No, good.
There we go. Outstanding. All right. We're making great progress. I love it. Technology is wonderful when it works. So the scope of our art, what art is he talking about there? He's talking about preaching. The scope of our art, and I want you to notice, dear ones, why he calls it art. We're going to explore that some more. The scope of our art is to provide the soul with wings, to rescue it from the world and give it to God. Can you think of any culture right now that doesn't desperately need that kind of help for the men and women that sit in our congregations and are in our parishes week after week after week? Our people are desperately needing serious, excellent pathways to get out of the rut that is killing them. So, you know what a rut is, don't you? A rut is a grave with both ends knocks out. Okay, so and to watch over that which is in his image, God's image, if it abides, to take it by the hand, if it is in danger, to restore it, if it is ruined, to make Christ dwell in the heart by the Spirit, and in a word, to deify and bestow heavenly bliss upon one who belongs to the heavenly host. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just discovered your why behind insisting on excellent, effective, purposeful preaching. So what is a homily? A homily, if you look at it just from an intellectual standpoint, is a type of public speaking. It is not a lecture, although it has lecture elements to it. It is not a Sunday school lesson, though it has pedagogical purposes. A homily is not just a devotional talk, though it has devotional elements to it. A homily, if it is an Orthodox Christian homily, is a particular style of public address that moves people from where they are to where they should be. A homily is only a homily if the people are told how to directly apply the cosmic theology that they have just heard about in the divine liturgy, that they have heard in the beauty of our chanting, in the amazing hymnography that we have in our church, the beautiful iconography. Look at all the fullness. Look at all the places of encounter that occur in the divine liturgy in an Orthodox church. When people walk in, I never will forget when I first walked into an Orthodox church, and there was all icons all over the wall, up on the ceiling, up in everywhere you turn around. Behind me, there's icons. In front of me, there was icons, all kinds of icons. I looked at my friend who was with me, and I said, "What do I look at first?" He said, "I don't know." It was overwhelming. It was a powerful emotional experience for me. And then I discovered in the divine liturgy, all five senses were used to draw me to God. Well, in normal orthodoxy, dear ones, if we look at how the church has developed her artwork, her beauty, her theology, and the excellence that she has done in the beauty of let me ask you a question. If you had an iconographer come to your church and start spilling paint on the floor and never cleaning his brushes and really didn't do a really good job, kind of got his lines messed up, the halos had all wavy lines in them and everything, you'd say, that guy's not paying attention to his job. Well, if you think for 1 second that you using your words badly in a homily doesn't convey the same message, you're wrong. Excellence, my dear friends, is the hallmark of normal orthodoxy. And I want to show you this. In fact, if you get a chance to go to this Pray Tell blog, I want you to read this series of articles by Father Lucas Christensen. So it is when one enters a typical church, she is surrounded by shimmering gold leaf and vivid color coalescing into the forms of angelic power, saints, Mary, Jesus Christ in portrait and narrative. The phenomena of light and shadow, central and liminal, spaces, smell and sound envelop the worshiper. Chant and movement surround her. All this together communicates the presence of heavenly worship, not at a remove, neither memorialized nor anticipated, but the here and now. This multi-sensory marvel weaves its entrancing tapestry from opening blessing through the psalms and procession into intoned scripture lessons. Then the gospel is replaced on the altar and it comes to a screeching halt. Father is going to say a few words. And in a moment, all that majesty, all that excellence, all that focus on beauty and cosmic wisdom and treasure and drawing the soul up to a higher place comes to a screeching halt because the homily doesn't match the rest of the artwork in the building. Now, we may, by the way, everybody got that link right there, Pray Tell blog index. In fact, if you just look up Father Lucas, by the way, Father Lucas Christensen is a Greek Orthodox priest. He's one of the guys we ought to have in November, by the way. Father Lucas Christensen is a Greek Orthodox priest. He's working on his doctoral degree and doing some wonderful stuff, and you ought to know him. Especially you seminarians, you ought to know him. You ought to read his stuff. It's really good stuff, and a very, very fine man. So when the homily matches the excellence and the beauty of of normal liturgical life in the Orthodox Church. By the way, I'm going to say something else that I hope is provocative enough to stir up conversation, not controversy. One of the ways, in fact, one of the main ways that we Orthodox have made stable, healthy, mature Orthodox Christians with a phronema that produces health and sobriety and a saintly person is the hymnography of our church. You're going to see, and when we get to the different holy days during Holy Week, where I talk about just a few ideas for you to give homilies. Every television for many years before I became Orthodox. And me and my best friend and 20 families from the church I was pastoring, we all converted together in November of 2001 in Atlanta, Georgia, at a little OCA parish there in Atlanta. I went online to look up the Orthodox Church using media, radio and television, and the only thing I found was Orthodox Christian Network. So I emailed Father Chris Metropolis. I said, Father Chris, my name is Barnabas Powell. I'm a recent convert. I have 15 years experience in Christian media. I'd love to help out any way I can. And about 15 minutes later, now this is how it tells you how old I am, my computer said, "You've got mail." And those of you who understand that joke, you know we're very old. And those of you who don't understand that joke, just keep your mouth shut, you young whippersnappers. Anyway, so you've got mail. Call me at this phone number right now. So I called Father Chris up and I said, Father Chris, my name's Barnabas Powell. He said, can you come down next week? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I can, because my consulting business that I owned, after I became Orthodox, none of my Protestant customers would hire me anymore. So I needed a job. So went down to Florida, went to work for Father Chris. Remembered the words of my spiritual father who brought me into the church, and Father Joseph told me as I was being chrismated, or after I was chrismated, he said, now, Barnabas, you're going to get married. I said, oh, I am. Okay, I'm going to get married. He said, but I don't want you to marry a young lady that was a convert. I said, okay, can you tell me why? He said, oh, sure. He said, she will know in her bones what you just know with your head. You will be able to explain to her why she does what she does. And then he said something that still rocks me to this day. He said, these two worlds will not survive apart. They need each other. To survive, they need each other. The lifelongs need the converts to remind them why their whole world was shaped by orthodoxy generations before they were born. And the converts need to be reminded to stop, eating the tree bark off the trees. Calm down. Relax, for heaven's sake. Don't be idiots. That truth carried with me when I finally I came up here to seminary in 2007, was ordained to the diaconate in 2009, priesthood 2010, and assigned to the Cumming parish, where they had 32 people. We now have 160 families. We own 16 acres of land there, and we're about to build our first building. God willing, we'll break ground April the 25th. If any of you have an extra $1 million laying around, please see me. I'll be happy to help you take care of them. God bless. God does. You better believe it. So I've watched as this happen. When the homily becomes, because you see, brothers and sisters, you live in a culture where good preaching is normal. Do you understand that? Now, it may not be normal in the subculture world that some people are in now, but for the vast majority of Americans, and by the way, folks, I know this is going to come as a shock to some of you, but there are a lot more people like me in this country than there are like, all the Opolises. I'm sorry, it's just what is. And if we're going to be a serious Orthodox church in this culture, then we're going to have to find a way to speak in such a way that this culture has access to the treasures we claim we have. Because ultimately, dear ones, if we withhold spiritual treasure from dying people, we are more akin to the evil one than we are to Christ. I'm going to be speaking on the Sunday of Orthodoxy at the Pan-Orthodox event in Atlanta And I'm going to tell them something that I think is the name of the talk is Making the Invisible Visible. And we're going to focus on the fact that God, the invisible, has made himself visible for our salvation. And I said, but now, brothers and sisters, the greatest worry that I have is not that God made himself visible for my salvation, but that we are working very hard to make that which is visible invisible, which is a denial of our orthodoxy. And it's a rejection of the normal orthodoxy of the centuries that turns whole countries, whole people groups into church. That's normal. That's what orthodoxy normally does. So if we're going to speak during Holy Week, preaching during Holy Week is mainly focused on the themes of each day. You know it well, especially those of you. By the way, how many of you are lifelong Orthodox? Lifelong Orthodox, raise your hand. Lucky dogs. Well, no, you are. I would trade anything in the world to have what you've had your whole life. And of course, some of you would say, "Well, but Father, I want what the good, wonderful." See, we're already proven it. We need each other. We need each other. So the themes of the day will invite us to join our life to the life of Jesus Christ. Make no mistake about it, dear ones. The purpose of the homily is to enjoin the people to prepare their hearts to receive the Lord Jesus in the Eucharist. It's the reason why it happens after the gospel lesson. Katalavite, do you understand what I'm saying to you? The placing of the homily in the divine liturgy is not an accident. Moving it to the end of the liturgy, because that's when everybody will be there, is a concession to our poverty. It is not normal. Normal orthodoxy has the homily after the declaration of the gospel. It's the reason why one of the ancient canons is, if you don't hear the gospel proclaimed, don't approach the chalice, you're not ready to receive the Eucharist. If you get to the liturgy after the gospel has been proclaimed, one of the ancient canons of the church says, don't approach the chalice, you're not ready to receive the Eucharist. So the homily being where it is before the declaration of the creed and after the gospel lesson means that the homily is in the spot to help the faithful receive the Eucharist in an intelligent and faithful and natural way. A way that will help them become by grace what Christ is by nature and take the body and blood of Christ in them with a serious and informed and open heart. Does that make sense? That's a big deal, guys. That alone, if you start declaring that, in making that normal orthodoxy in the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of the United States, you're going to start opening up all kinds of opportunities for us to take seriously the words we say in the divine liturgy about the faith we say we believe. Because the divine liturgy and the normal way, I started saying this earlier, the normal way that orthodoxy has made healthy, well-rounded, mature Christians isn't through having them read lots of books. Most of our brothers and sisters throughout the centuries couldn't read. And yet they glowed in the dark when they prayed. How is that possible? It's not about intellectually giving them information they don't have. It's about so forming their lives that they become like Jesus Christ. I told a catechumen recently, we're going through our Journey to Fullness class. Those of you who know what Journey to Fullness is, if you don't know what Journey to Fullness is, Journey to Fullness is a 16-week course that I created several years ago. It's 16 20-minute videos called Journey to Fullness, where it is a pre-catechism. It's an introduction to orthodoxy to the average American. And we created that. Ancient Faith distributes it for us. You can get a workbook with it, blah, blah, blah. This commercial announcement has been brought to you by Journey. Well, no. But the reality is I started that simply because as we're forming these converts that are flocking into our church, we've got to form them in such a way that maximizes the opportunity for them to be healthy Christians. Does that make sense? Because I want this to create a multi-generational experience for these people. Not just, this is the latest stop on their church hopping or church shopping tour. I want them to find the home in the Orthodox faith and a place where they can raise their kids to be Orthodox Christians. See, because my kids are lifelong Orthodox. They're cradle Orthodox. Their dad, on the other hand, my daughter told me the other day, says, Dad, those converts, I said, careful, baby. I'm one. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry about that. So this whole point of how we make normal, healthy Orthodox Christians is done in the liturgical rhythm of our faith. Not just the divine liturgy, but Orthros and Vespers and Compline and Paraklesis and memorial services and all of the hymnology that we have in our church. I tell my converts over and over again, if you genuinely want a master's degree in theology, come to Orthros for a year and listen to the hymns. Of course, that requires the hymns be in a language you can understand. But the reality is these hymns make healthy Christians, because we do orthodoxy, unlike our brethren in the West, doxologically rather than systematically. We do theology doxologically. So what we believe always shows up in our hymns. And so if we take advantage of the treasures that are already there, preserved for centuries in our church, and take it seriously and apply it to the lives of our men and women, they will become healthy, Orthodox, normal Orthodox Christians. And they will raise normal Orthodox Christian children. A general word about Holy Week. The rhythm of Holy Week is designed to be disruptive. There's nothing as disruptive as Holy Week in my life. It's a pain in the rear end. The morning service is in the evening service is in the morning. Everything's topsy-turvy. Isn't that wonderful? It's on purpose. By the way, folks, if orthodoxy isn't changing your life, you're just not doing it right. You got that? If orthodoxy isn't changing the lives of the people in your congregation, that's a symptom. Something's up. Preach better. And I know what to do. Say to them, oh, by the way, this is supposed to change you. Really? Is this what? Yeah. You're supposed to become, people are supposed to stop you on the road and say, are you Jesus Christ? You look just like him. That's normal. That's what the faith is supposed to produce. The time is turned upside down to make it clear that this week is meant to orient you to another place. Making this an underlying theme in your speaking to the people is another way to call attention to the wisdom and the purpose of the faith. So let's start with Palm Sunday. Now, you're going to hear me say the same thing. And guys, I'm going to roll through this quick, because there's an old saying in preaching that I remember to this day: the mind can only conceive what the seat can endure. And I think that's true. And we're after lunch, and I really would rather get to your questions and a conversation with you. And I specifically want to hear from my brothers, Father Luke and Father Nick, as we have a panel discussion. We answer your questions. That's much more important than this. These are just some ideas, okay? Just like Father Nick said, this is just one style. And I'll explain to you what all the abbreviations mean in just a second. This is just one style. My style, I will tell you this, one of the reasons why I have a lot of Protestant converts in my parish, you know what they always tell me? In fact, I had a family this past week that was visiting, and in our parish, at our coffee hour, we have a special table set aside for first-time guests. And there's a sign on it that says, this is a table for first-time guests. This is where Father Barnabas has his coffee on Sunday morning. And it's set aside just for them. And this past week, we had about 15 or 20 first-time guests. And they were all sitting around, and one teenage kid was there with her mom and dad, and she was just completely shell-shocked. She was like, I don't know what to think about all this stuff. And I asked her, I said, so what did you think about the service? She said, I was completely disoriented. I said, oh, good. That's wonderful. So we did what we were supposed to do. That's outstanding. I said, did you find anything, where you could plug in? She said, yeah, the sermon reminded me of where I'm coming from. Oh, okay, good. They always tease me that I preach like a Baptist, and I always get offended because I was never a Baptist. I was a Pentecostal, bless God. Every day of Holy Week, you get scripture lessons out in wonderful, wonderful amounts. You could preach a different sermon on every day of Holy Week for the next 30 years and not repeat yourself. This is how rich it is. But we're going to look at the triumphal entry, John 12, 1 through 18. The main theme, on account of Lazarus. What Father Luke told you is exactly right. When I was in Protestant seminary, I had a wonderful preaching professor by the name of John Tal Murphy. He was about 6'7". He weighed maybe 120 pounds. And he was from the great state of Virginia. And he had the most wonderful proper Southern accent you've ever heard in your life. And, all of us Southerners, by the way, when I travel around the country, I'm going to Orlando next at the end of the week to do an event down there. But I've been doing a lot of stuff up north. Why? Don't ask me why I'm doing it during the wintertime. But for some reason or another, I've said yes to several things up north. Go to Maryland next, for heaven's sake. And every time I have to begin all of my presentations with this one phrase: I'm not the one with the accent. Y'all are the folks that talk funny. But this wonderful truth that Holy Week invites me to embrace is this wonderful focus of on account of Lazarus. It's like Father Luke told you, you got to have a controlling focus, a vision. And so if you look down here where it says DS, in my homilies, the DS stands for the declarative statement. The declarative statement is the homily in one sentence. Just like Father Luke said about having a focus. My declarative statement, and brothers, the declarative statement is the first thing I write after I have studied. It's the first thing I write. The first thing I write in preparing my homily is the declarative statement, the sermon in a sentence. And so this declarative statement that I'm just using as an example, you can get hundreds of declarative statements. The declarative statement for this passage of Scripture, the power of resurrection offers us two paths. So guess what the homily is going to be? Path number one, path number two. You got it? The power of the resurrection offers us two paths. Now, the what you see there, it looks like ill, or the three letters. That's ILL actually, capital I, little l, little l. Illustration. Every sermon that you offer has to have a declarative statement. It has to have a point. It has to have a illustration, and it has to have an application. Every point has an illustration, and every point has an application. Application is where you preach. This is where you say, y'all folks do this. And I'm using one of the hymns of the day. In heaven he is seated upon a throne, and on earth he rides upon a foal. O Christ our God, accept the praise of the angels and the hymn of the children who cry out to you. Blessed are you who comes to recall Adam on account of Lazarus. You remember the story, don't you? That they started planning to not just kill Jesus, but now they had to kill Lazarus too, because everybody was coming to see the man that Jesus raised from the dead. On account of Lazarus. Because you see, brothers and sisters, new life in Jesus Christ always creates two paths and two kinds of responses. A kind of response that says, man, I want that, and a kind of response that says, man, I hate that. That's what orthodoxy does in this culture, guys and gals. A normal orthodoxy will always produce. Why do you think we say in the Divine Liturgy, for those who love us and those who dislike us? No, we don't say dislike, do we? For those who love us and those who don't really love us as much as we want to be loved. No. For those who love us and those who hate us. Orthodox Christianity puts before a human being a choice of life and death. If you love death, you hate orthodoxy. If you love life, you love orthodoxy. It is that plain, and this culture is desperate to hear this message. Palm Sunday gives you the opportunity to preach a message that tells them the truth. Our lives are filled with moments where God is resurrecting us in His image, but too often we miss the opportunity to embrace this because it threatens our false view of ourselves. There is nothing more terrifying to a person who loves mediocrity than excellence. There is nothing more terrifying to a person who loves their life just the way it is than to be confronted with the fact that God calls me to a higher place. And so when you begin preaching this way, dear ones, please understand, if you think everybody's going to say, oh, he's so wonderful. Do you believe this? I know this is going to be hard for you to believe. There are people who dislike me. I mean a lot. They dislike me. One man told me one time, he said, you threaten our church. I said, you darn right I do. I agree with you 100%. I do. But the problem is it's your church and not the Lord's church. If it's the Lord's church, everything's fine. The challenge becomes, you preach this way, and if you think for 1 second it's always going to be sweetness and light and happiness and joy, come on, guys. They crucified the King. You're not going to miss that, okay? I mean, so for those who love us and those who hate us. But make no mistake about it, this kind of preaching creates that situation. Now, if you don't want that situation, I get it. So just give them pablum and fulfill the scriptures that Paul talked about. In the last days, they will heap unto themselves preachers having itching ears, saying unto them, prophesy unto us smooth things. Or be a normal Orthodox Christian and preach. And it'll set up, people will love you and people will hate you. And that's okay. All right, next. What kind of time? We got, I'm going to take my clock out so I can keep an eye on this because, guys, you got to understand something. The sound of my voice comforts me. And so it keeps me calm. And so, come on, thing. Nothing's happening still. I'm so sad. Oh, Holy Monday, there we are. All right. The fig tree in the vineyard and the rejected stone. Jesus offers us contrasting pictures of life with him and existing without him. Again, Holy Week gives you an opportunity to bring your people to the point of encounter. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just like I said early on, in your sermon, in your preaching, if you're going to insist on excellence in your preaching, you're going to have the artwork of your preaching match the artwork of the iconography in your church building, match the artwork of the chanting, match the artwork of the theological concepts, match the artwork and the excellence of the beauty of the depth of Orthodox Christianity. Your preaching joins in that invitation of encounter that occurs in a normal Orthodox church. And that invitation to encounter, brothers and sisters, please understand, is going to mean conflict. It is going to be upsetting at times. It is not going to be it is not going to be sweetness and light all the time. It's going to be kind of uncomfortable, and that's okay. But if you will come to your sermons with that reality, noticing that you're going to bring people to encounter, there is one element in normal orthodoxy that changes the dynamic. Are you ready? In the Orthodox Church, the priest is called Father. That is not a title. It's an icon. You're called Father in the community. So which means you've listened to Father Nick when he says, your job is to know your congregation. Your job is to love your congregation. So when you are giving homilies that bring them to this stark encounter with the fact that their life is called to be changed by the grace of God, if you remember that you are called Father among these people, the love that you have for them, the concern that you have for them, the desire that you have for them to be healthy and mature and well-rounded Orthodox Christians that can reproduce themselves in their children and in their grandchildren, that hunger and that desire that you have to serve them and to be father to them, gives you the encounter opportunity for a healthy way to confront in such a way that brings them to life and not to death. It's hard work, guys, but I'm telling you, in normal orthodoxy, all the tools you need for excellent communication is there. Everything you need is there. And so when we come to Holy Monday, Jesus offers us a contrasting picture of life with himself and existing without him. Jacob mourned the loss of Joseph, while the noble one rode in a chariot. Isn't that interesting? Look at how the hymnographer, Jacob is mourning the loss of his son, but his son is actually exalted. Do you get that? Watch this. He won and rode on a chariot, honored his royalty for having spurned the enticements of the Egyptian woman. He was in turn glorified by him who knows the hearts of men and bestows an incorruptible crown. Guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. You learn the hymns of the Orthodox Church and you will have an unimaginable theological education. Everything we believe we sing about. Everything we do theology doxologically, okay? You're going to form your people by having them be formed, by having those words become who they are. not depending on mere nostalgia, but actual confrontation and encounter with the fullness of the faith in a way that engages their lives. That makes all the difference in the world. So, the application, the power of the parables of the fig tree, the vineyard, and the rejected stone invite us to take seriously God's offer to give us his life. We choose you this day whom you will serve. Who's it going to be? All right, next. Holy Tuesday. The wise and foolish virgins. This, you guys know all this story very, very well. Notice all of them were virgins. Every one of them were virgins. How many times have you heard that the monastic life is the virginal life? It's the angelic life, and that's wonderful. All of them were virgins, and that's a great thing. But only half were wise and attentive. Attentiveness is the key. By the way, what Father was talking about, the noonday demon, over and over again, the Fathers constantly exalt a few things that are very important: sobriety, attentiveness, and discernment. So how do you develop sobriety, attentiveness, and discernment? You have what did Jesus say? Jesus says, if your eye is evil, your whole body will be filled with darkness. But if your eye, watch this, guys, this is free. Now, this is not even on the slide. That's for those of you at home. This is no charge. If your eye is single, your whole body will be filled with light. If you're focused, if you're attentive, if you're sharp, if you have become so shaped by the faith that you're discerning that you can able to divine between the bone and the marrow. That sharpness, that discernment, that is the natural result of the regular, normal application of the wisdom of the faith to constantly reorient you towards heavenly things, to practice a lifestyle of metanoia, of repentance. Change the way you think, you'll change the way you live. So, Jesus invites us to be ready by living normally but attentive eternally. This is the neat thing that I love about Father Thomas Hopko. Father Thomas Hopko would say, strive to live a normal life. I love that. Strive to live a normal life. But you got to know what normal means, folks. And normal doesn't mean mundane. Normal means cosmically connected to Jesus Christ. That's normal. Because that's the only time you're a human. If it's true what we say we believe, that Jesus Christ is the theanthropos, the God-man. He's the human being. If that's who we're called to become like, then that's not a mundane life, but it does reset our idea of normal, which is absolutely necessary. See, the bridegroom sets forth in the dead of night, and blessed is that servant whom he shall find watching, on watch, unworthy the one he shall come upon lazing. See to it, soul, that sleep does not overtake you, lest you be given up to death. Watch that. Sleep, given over to death, and be shut out of the kingdom. Bestir yourself then and cry out, sing out, holy, holy, holy are you, our God. Through the prayers of the forerunner, save us. The purpose of our daily practice of the faith isn't meant to make us otherworldly, but is meant to form us so we are never surprised by eternity. I love a great story that a monk was telling these folks that were visiting the monastery, and it was, of course, a beautiful place. It was absolutely gorgeous monastery, and it was very quiet and very peaceful, and so on and so forth. And one of the ladies looked at the monk and said, "Father, what do you think heaven's going to be like?" And the old monk kind of shrugged his shoulders and looked around and said, "Kind of like this, like this." A normal Orthodox Christian has become so used to eternity that being in eternity is normal. How do you do that, folks? Well, you're not going to do it in a world that is so gripped by time and so gripped by self-centered narcissistic madness that the only thing they can think of is, well, today I identify as a kumquat. Oh, isn't that cute? Oh, that's wonderful. The madness of the world is not normal. It's unhealthy. It feeds a sickness of narcissism that kills people God loves. And it's not loving for me to leave someone in that state. That's not loving. It's not compassion. It's just cowardice. We have enough cowards, folks. God bless you. We have enough cowards. We need normal Orthodox Christian preachers that are going to offer people a path out of the madness. And the way to do that is to focus on Christ. And awareness of just how deep our need of God for God's grace sets us free to return His love with our gratitude in words and actions. Holy Thursday, the hands that receive the bread from Christ also receive the price of betrayal from the enemies of Christ. The Lord, on the Holy Thursday, Jesus shows us that betrayal always flows from too small a vision. Judas didn't hate Christ, he didn't recognize Him. Judas didn't hate Christ. He didn't recognize Him. He didn't know Him. His vision of who Jesus was too small. And it cost him his soul. That's always the case, folks. We find it easy to betray our faith, to betray our true purpose when we fail to allow God's great purpose for our lives to fully be formed in us. This always flows from a self-love rather than a love for God. What did Jesus say? The great commandments are easy. Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. All right. Holy and Great Friday, Jesus' death uncovers the nagging fear that enslaves us. Come, let us all praise Him who was crucified for us. Mary beheld Him on the tree and said, though you endure even the cross, you are my Son and my God. Even after having Him killed, the religious leaders were still scared. Did you notice that? Pilate, that deceiver, he said that if we kill Him, He's going to rise again. Folks, all this noise about the way they didn't realize He was going to rise again, dog bones. They were all afraid of that. Even after killing Him. Oh, this will do Him in. Even after killing Him, they were still afraid of Him. It's smart. They should be. They wanted a guard set there to keep Him from being stolen away. Even after having killed Him, the religious leaders were still scared. This fear is what keeps us always holding back from embracing the radical message of the death of death and new life in Jesus Christ. Where are you afraid? And is that a place where the resurrected life of Jesus Christ hasn't been taken seriously by you to form you into a normal Orthodox Christian? Holy Saturday, the earth shakes at the undoing of the power of death. He who enclosed the depths is now seen dead, the deeps is now seen dead, and the immortal one is laid in a tomb, enclosed in a shroud with myrrh. Women too come to anoint Him, weeping bitterly and lamenting. The Sabbath is blessed above all others, for Christ, having fallen asleep, will rise on the third day. We cannot hide from the upheaval of genuine faith. Normal orthodoxy upends living an unthinking life. Normal orthodoxy is disruptive. Normal orthodoxy demands a response. Normal orthodoxy insists on maximizing the wisdom of the faith, not taming it to fit in with the spirit of the age. That's not going to make you a lot of friends, except in high places. We cannot hide from the upheaval of genuine faith. It is supposed to shake up our lives and transform us. That's normal orthodoxy. If you want to preach about Holy Saturday, talk about the earthquake. And honey, let's shake things up. The beauty of our faith, our churches, and our hymnody invites us as preachers to paint with words and story a picture for our faithful that equals the majesty of our Orthodox faith. We dare not miss this opportunity to invite all the people to see that the invisible has made Himself visible for us all. Now, I will tell you this. One of the best ways to become a better preacher is look at good preaching. So make sure you look up Father Nick's homilies from Jacksonville, Florida at St. John the Divine Church. You can even watch my stuff if you want to at Faith and Courage TV on YouTube. And you can go back all the way to 2012 and listen to me butcher sermons and do pretty good sometimes do okay. Sometimes do pretty great. Most of the time it's but that's okay. It's all right. At least, but it's never boring. And I will say this: 12 to 15 minutes is the limit as far as preaching goes. Although I will say this: if you're an interesting speaker, an hour feels like 15 minutes. If you're a boring speaker, 5 minutes feels like 2 hours. So preach as long as the people want you. Listen, like Father Luke said, the key to good preaching is stopping before they want you to. I don't mind people looking at their watch while I'm preaching. By the way, for those of you who are really young, a watch is a timepiece that they used to wear on their wrists. I don't mind people looking at their watch when I'm preaching. It's when they start doing this. So, the length of your sermon, I would say this, 10 to 12 minutes is optimal. I have gone 15 minutes before, but that's when you better be good, guys. Because the sermon is not the point of the liturgy. You understand that, right? Because it's too dangerous to turn the people into an audience when the sermon is the main show. The Eucharist is the main show. The sermon is to help the people get to the Eucharist. Got it? And that's why excellence is necessary. So for heaven's sake, my men, it's like my old preacher professor used to tell me. He said, son, never preach from an empty well. Always preach from the overflow of your own life. Orthodox Christianity is so rich and so powerful and so treasure-filled. If you want your soul inspired, get those hymns out and just read them. Get a Paraklesis and read the Paraklesis to the Theotokos. You want to teach somebody what we believe about Mary? Have them pray the Paraklesis with you. And pretty soon, they'll go, oh, this is what we believe about Mary. This is the path, brothers. This is the path of courage. It's the path of true fatherhood and not just being a religious bureaucrat or a tribal medicine man, but a father in a family. Amen.